Hi there, and welcome to the GCSE Music Getting Ready for 25-26 assessments. People are just arriving, so I'll be letting them into the session. Just to start off with, a few housekeeping things. First of all, obviously we are working over the internet, which can cause some connection issues. If you do find any problems with connection at all, the first thing to do is to try logging out and then logging back into the session. That usually fixes a lot of issues with sound or if the presentation's not updating. Those are the first things. If there are any issues, you can also message using the chat function. The other thing is that the session is being recorded as well. I will try and make a recording of this session available shortly after in the next few days. And that will be available on my YouTube channel as well. Finally, if you do have any questions, there will be time at the end, and I will try and get through any questions that you do have. By all means, you can put them in the chat as we go through. I'll try and pause at different times to maybe go through things where they are relevant as well. But as I said, if you do have any questions, there should be time at the end as well to go through anything there. So we will be covering a little bit of a review of the 2025 series, just having a look back and going through some guidance that's come out of the principal moderator and principal examiner reports, just as a bit of advice for moving forward for future series. Look at post-result services that are available to you. Go through the NEA requirements for this coming year, so for performing and composing. A look at submission of NEA work through LWT and just some general guidance there. Training that is coming up that you can also access and reserve places for. Useful resources available, and then, as I said, time for any questions at the end. So we will have a look at the 2025 series and just some feedback that's come out of the principal moderator report. First of all, for component 1, things that were noted were things like the performance length and meeting those requirements. So there were still submissions that fell short of the 4-minute combined duration requirement. If it did fall in that, then submissions would have a proportional penalty applied. That is detailed in the specification, and there is the chart that shows the percentage reduction for depending on how far under that combined duration it is. It's really important to accurately measure the length of performance. So for pieces, that's from the first note to the end of the last note, and making sure that that's calculated correctly. If you do have any performances that do fall under the 4-minute requirement, that does need to be declared, and there is a form that needs to be filled in that is available online when next to the section where the PAS and CAS forms are, and you can fill that in and complete that and let that goes to the moderation team, who are then aware of any performances that are under that duration. and that includes any that are not in the sample as well, so any performances at all. Then the other thing to be aware of is the recording quality. It was noted that there's a wide range in recording quality. It's requested that if they can be in uncompressed format, so that's a WAV 16-bit at 44.1 kilohertz, because that is the same as CD quality, and that means that moderators can hear everything on the recording in terms of the quality of the sound that's coming through. The other thing to note, particularly with ensemble recordings as well, is thinking about the microphone placement when that recording is taking place, making sure that it is picking up the sound in the room and making sure that that is the balanced sound for that recording. Sometimes centres can, when they're placing the mic, try and place it closer to the candidate that's being assessed in an ensemble because they think that will bring out the sound better for that candidate. What we're trying to hear is that balance of the ensemble as well, and so actually trying to just pick up the sound of the ensemble as a whole and how that sounds to you in the room. So it might take a little bit of playing around and moving the mic around to ensure that it gets the best recording. But it's important to do that because then a moderator can make that decision based on what they're listening to as well. The administration side and the pass forms, it's preferred if the Excel spreadsheet version of the pass is used because that is much more efficient and deals with a lot of the accuracy things that can happen because a lot of the calculation of marks and timings is done for you on that form when you fill in the individual details. So it can actually be quicker for you and easier for the moderator to find all the information on there as well. If there are things missing from the form or incorrectly labeled files, incomplete scores, or where they're scanned in different orientations, it can prove problematic with the moderation process. And obviously, if a moderator is missing information, they may have to come back to your centre and ask for that information as well. So trying to make sure that everything is included when you make that initial submission and you submit and click that button in LWT to submit everything. Marking and justification. So most teachers apply the marking grids accurately, but there are still some that lack detail in the justification or misapplied grid criteria. It is important to add comments when you're adding the marks in there for each marking grid because a moderator can then see your thought processes and understand where you're coming from when you're giving those marks. So that's a really important thing, is to be able to explain your decisions when you're giving that mark as well, and a moderator can see that through your comments. And I suppose this point again comes back to something that I mentioned there in the administration side of things, about submitting the scores and making sure that they're well organized and scanned correctly. That can make that moderation process a lot smoother as well, because if they're incomplete or unclear, it can delay that process, and the moderator might need to come back to your centre and ask for more information. So some tips moving forward for the next year around performance is to help you and your learners and your candidates there So encourage students to select pieces that match their skill level. Because of the scaling grids for standard and more difficult as they scale up, it can be tempting to try and push a candidate to go for something more difficult because you see the scaling there. However, the way the marking grids work, that could actually impact them much harsher than the points they would get, the marks they would gain through scaling up, because it would be beyond their ability, and that could put them in a much lower band of a marking grid and really impact them in different ways. So trying to make sure that they are selecting pieces that's within their technical ability and they feel comfortable with, that they can do their best performance, is always recommended. Structured practice for control and interpretation. So planning regular sessions where you can focus on the things that are in those marking grids: accuracy, fluency, and expressive interpretation. Making sure that you can give feedback to build confidence in learners in both their solo and ensemble performances. Again, support ensemble balance and communication, work with learners on their ensemble skills, make sure they're listening back to themselves performing in ensemble, and making sure that they are thinking about the balance within that ensemble as well. And again, promoting that recording and self-review, ensuring that they can sort of critically comment on their own performances and see and listen back to their own performances and how they can improve things and where they can improve moving forward before their final submission and their final recording. To look at component 2 and composing, it was noted that the best outcomes generally came from learners composing using their own musical interests and experiences, rather than using a cohort-wide approach to tasks, where a cohort would choose all in a particular style. That's certainly not encouraged, and you should be encouraging learners to compose music with their own musical interests and experiences and the styles that they are familiar with and used to and have that knowledge around, because, as it says, it generally builds better outcomes for candidates. Making sure that scores and commentary detail is sufficient, so having detailed scores that other musicians can replicate to that performance by. It doesn't have to be standard traditional notation. It can be other forms, so commentaries, screenshots from DAW with annotations, as long as it's understandable of what is the intention from the composition, so a moderator can see the understanding and the thought processes of the candidate. If it's vague or incomplete, it can make that moderation process much more difficult to base decisions on. High scoring compositions generally demonstrated secure control of musical elements and varied textures. Over-reliance on melody dominated homophony did quite often limit marks. It was noted as well. Successful compositions also featured fluent transitions, clear contrast between sections, and had a flow and movement within the piece. Repetition without variation can limit marks and be less successful in terms of meeting the higher marks in some of those grids as well. And then again, administration and submission, making sure that the CAS forms are completed, correctly labelled, and making sure that all the material is submitted including the highest and lowest scoring candidates if they aren't already in that sample, makes things a much smoother process for moderation, and probably saves the moderator coming back to your centre to ask for material. Again, some observations for moving forward was guide learners to compose using their own musical interests and experiences. As I said, it generally led to things being more creative and higher quality outcomes overall. Support candidates in producing the detail in their score or commentaries, making sure that there's enough detail in there for learners to be able to express how they are creating the parts and what those parts are, making sure that there is tempo, phrasing, dynamics, those sorts of things in the scores so it can be understood. And again, it could be screenshots, could be MIDI parts, it could be standard notation. There are different ways of expressing that and allowing that to be submitted. Promoting variety and technical control in there, making sure that candidates are using varying textures, structures, and exploiting all the parts in the ensemble idiomatically to score higher on those marking grids as well. And then having that coherence and contrast in the structure. So planning their compositions with fluent transitions between sections and avoid that repetition of content, so copying things exactly. If sections are repeated, making sure that that is developed in some way to keep that material moving and developing, and it's not just a complete repetition of that. And then finally moving on to component 3, praising. This is just the one slide for this rather than the two. So making sure that candidates have a secure understanding of musical terminology and context. You've got the vocabulary list in the specification. That isn't exhaustive, but it does detail a lot of the vocabulary used in the appraising papers. And it was generally noted that candidates that had a good understanding and strong understanding of those performed best. Promote active listening and familiarity, frequent and focused listening of the set works, and practicing with extracts from different sections can help learners become familiar with that music and the different characteristics and the features of those pieces. Regularly practicing dictation and notation skills because that will help them build those skills for question 7 in the exam. Practicing analytical and comparative writing. So that's that question 9, where they do have to compare an unfamiliar piece with a set work. It was noted that strong responses were generally well planned, made direct comparisons, and used evidence from the skeleton scores to really back up what those points were that they were being made there. And then having a breadth of musical experience, so having that exposure to a wide variety of music from all the studies, not focusing purely down on the set works, but bringing in other pieces of music to help support their learning and recognise the features that are in the set works in other pieces of music as well. I can pause there for any questions coming in around that. I can't see any in the chat at the moment. But I will keep an eye on that as we go through this session as well. Someone has asked, is there a new PAS document? There will be. We are just finalising things with that, and that should be available soon. There are just a couple of discussions going on with that, and the same for the CAS as well. Yes. So yeah, we're just in a process of making some decisions around that, and we will make them available as soon as possible. So moving on to the post-results services available to you for the 2025 series. You would have received, just before I move on, I've seen a couple of other things come in the chat. Performance was from the start, even if with a piano accompaniment when the soloist is not performing. So yeah, the timing of the performance is taken from the start of the piece to the last note of the piece. CAS forms don't offer enough space for comment. Okay, I will make sure that that's fed back. With the spreadsheet version, it should be available that a moderator would be able to see all comments, even if it doesn't fit in the box, although I believe there should be a way of that wrapping the text and fitting in there as well. In terms of the PDF, I will need to clarify if the PDF is actually going to be available, or whether it will just be the spreadsheet. That's one of the things that is being looked at the moment. And just to clarify, a vocalist singing counts from the start of the song or when the vocal part begins. So it's from the start of the piece. It doesn't have to be exactly when the vocalist starts singing in there, because they are obviously still performing, because they need to be aware of where they're beginning and ending in that piece. They're still following that. So yes, that's in terms of how we calculate the time of the performance. So the required time for the 4 minutes would be made up of the timing of the solo performance and the ensemble performance based on how long those pieces are. Okay, post-result services. The E9 moderator report should have been received by your centre on results day. That gives you some feedback about the moderator's opinion of the work that was submitted. So that gives you some feedback and tells you if any adjustments were made or not. We have also published online the principal moderator and examiner reports for all 3 components, and they contain really useful information in there from the 2025 series, but also advice moving forward for future series, and identifies things that centres did well and where there's areas for improvement as well. There is Results Plus, which is a free service that has analysis of your candidates' marks and performance across different components, it's usually components 2 and 3 that appear on there, because component 1 performing is a little tricky to go into that platform due to timing and scaling requirements and things like that. So it is usually components 2 and 3 that appear in there. Most centres, I think, use it for analysing the results of component 3, because it obviously gives feedback on each candidate, and you can also compare against the Edexcel average and things like that. There's the free access to script service. This is for component 3 for GCSE music. So you can download the scripts for your candidates. You do need their permission to do that, but you can download their scripts and see their responses to the questions in the exam. There is a deadline to download and save any of that using the Access to Script service, and that is the 12th of December. We have the post-results services of reviews of marking and moderation. So if you do feel that the marking or moderation for a candidate or your cohort for moderation is not correct, then you can request a review of marking or moderation. The deadline to request that is the 25th September. With component 3, that's a review of marking, and you can do that for individual candidates. For performing and composing, that has to be a review of moderation, where you would need to submit the full original sample, and that would get looked at by a senior examiner or moderator, depending on which component that's for. Just seen a question about free composition. Do students have to specify the audience and occasion, or is this just for the set brief? So with the free composition, they should give a description of the audience and occasion, so it's fully understood what the intention of that composition is for. So yeah, that should be in there. Obviously, you can use past briefs for inspiration. You can base it on things from past years, or candidates can come up with their own ideas and include some of that detail in there, and explain the audience and occasion for that free composition. So having a look at the requirements for NEA for the next academic year, these are the same as previous years. So just to go over these quickly, it should be familiar to most of you. So we have 2 performances, 1 solo and 1 ensemble. They can be made up of multiple pieces. So you could have a solo performance with multiple pieces, or you could have an ensemble performance with multiple pieces. If a performance does have multiple pieces, that needs to be a continuous unedited recording for that performance, but you don't have to have solo and ensemble recorded on the same occasion. They can be done at different times. As mentioned earlier, the combined duration for performance is at least 4 minutes. If it does fall under that, there is that proportional penalty that would be applied, and that's published in the specification. It can be recorded at any point during this academic year, and it needs to be submitted with your marks and the full moderation sample by the 15th of May 2026. Again, just reiterating about the quality of recording, so ensure that recordings are clear, recorded with the best quality microphone available for your learners. External microphones are preferable rather than built-in microphones in phones, laptops, tablets, because they're generally better quality, and in using some phones, laptops or tablets, they can have compression built in, which means the recording can change in terms of what you're hearing in the room. So ideally, if you can turn compression off on the device that you are using, that should be done as well. If you do have any submissions that are for controller touchpad type surfaces, so for music technology performances, it is asked that they be video recordings of that performance, so we can see the what the learner is actually playing on that touchpad or surface, so we can understand fully what that performance involves. Also, with those sorts of performances where it's like a controller surface and it triggering short individual samples, that you submit all of those original samples that were used as well alongside that recording, because then we can hear what those individual samples are and how they're being used in the performance. For composing, 2 compositions, one free and then one to the brief, that was released on the 1st of September. There is a link in this presentation for the composition briefs, and it should have a combined duration of at least 3 minutes. Excuse me. There must have at least 5 hours of development and the final write-up and recording completed in the centre under teacher supervision. And again, that's submitted by the 15th of May 2026. I can see a question just come in about scores for ensemble performance. I will come back to that in a minute and go through things there as well. So LWT submissions, just going through that. So everything is submitted online through Learner Work Transfer, LWT, by the 15th of May. You will also have to, for performing and composing, enter your marks on Edexcel Online. So that's a separate place where you would enter the marks, and then you upload all the materials, so PAS, CAS forms, and your sample works and scores on LWT. General tips: PAS and CAS forms as one continuous file if you are using the PDF version. If you're using the Excel file, you just upload the Excel file, and that's absolutely fine. Audio files should be uncompressed at CD quality. If you are using a compressed audio file, so like MP3, M4A, for example, please ensure that it does have a minimum bit rate of 256 kilobytes per second. That's getting around that CD quality sound, so we don't want anything less than that, really. Create single continuous file for all pages of the score for each performance or composition. So there should be a file for solo performance, for example, and then ensemble performance with all the pages. So separate files for solo and ensemble, but with all the pages for each piece in there. And then there are detailed guides for how to use LWT and upload things, and there's a link there to do that as well. Training that is currently available. There are a couple of sessions coming up later this term. So there is the coursework marking training for performance. That's on the 17th of November. And there is also an effective strategies for teaching GCSE music appraising paper on the 25th. Again, there's links there, which I will share this slideshow with everyone. And but you can also find them on the Pearson Development Academy. So if you go to the music pages in there, you can find those events and sign them up. It's also available on qualifications.pearson.com under training from Pearson, and you can find those events there as well. There's also useful resources on the website to help you prepare for the year and prepare your learners. So there's exemplar material, course planners, set works guides. Sorry, just go back. Past training content and schemes of work. You've got all the past papers, marked schemes and audio files, and then examiner reports. Obviously, the specification and sample assessment material is online, and then difficulty level booklet is there as well for referencing any pieces. If there are pieces that you are using that aren't in the difficulty level booklet, there is another document that is contains standard level descriptors for different groups of instruments. You can use that for solo and ensemble to make decisions. So if a piece is meeting most of those descriptors, then it's probably going to be a standard level performance. If it's exceeding most of the descriptors for the instrument, then it may fall into more difficult. And if it's not meeting those descriptors, then it may well be that it is a less difficult piece and you'll have to make a decision on that. So that form is online under that first link there on this page under the teaching learning materials as well. So we've got around about 20 minutes for questions. We may not need all of that time, and we may finish early. I know that there are a couple of questions that came in, so I will go through those. And I'm just going back to find the first question that came in. So do students have to specify the audience occasion? I answered that one. What happens if you cannot find scores for an ensemble performance? Should it be notated or a pre-recorded reference is enough? So it is an off-qual requirement that a notated score be submitted for a piece if it exists. It hasn't been defined what "if it exists" actually means. So if you are looking through and you've searched for a notated score for a piece and it's not featuring on the first page or two of Google, you could probably assume that it's not going to exist. If it's clearly a piece that's on a graded syllabus, then it's likely that that notated score exists somewhere and you would have to use that. You can also, alongside that score, if it exists, upload a reference recording as well and indicate on the pass form that the learner has mainly used the reference recording to learn the piece as well, and that makes the moderator aware of that situation. But if you cannot find a score and it doesn't exist, then it is possible to use other forms and a professional reference recording, so the original piece recorded by the original artist, band, or whoever would be enough to submit there if that score doesn't exist. So brief one, the rondo questions. Can it have an introduction? Must it be A, B, A, C, A, or could it be longer? What I will do with any specific questions like this, what I can do is have those answered by one of the moderating team. So with questions like that, if you can email them to teachingmusic@pearson.com, I can then forward that on and get that answered for you by a member of the moderating team, just to make it very clear of the expectations around some of those really specific questions in there, just to make it clear for you. Composition brief questions. We have several students who want to compose music, stage and screen for both compositions. Is that an issue? No, it is absolutely fine to use the music, stage and screen brief from the brief that they choose, and then have a free composition that is in a similar genre style. That's absolutely fine. Can it be inspired by film opening credits, or does it have to match the opening credits time-wise? So it doesn't have to match the particular credits of an existing film. It could be a film that does exist, or it could be one that a scenario that the learner has made up. But it would be useful to have like a description, storyboard, things indicated on the score to show the action that's it's in response to, and the intention there. So making sure that it's clear and learners are showing what their intentions are and how it relates to any action on screen would be useful as well. If someone wanted to do Cinderella, could someone record speaking the story at the start? I would say in that situation that it's more useful to have the description and indications on the score as to what's happening and relation of that. So confirm the minimum duration of composition, yes, is 1 minute. That's in the specification. So yeah, composition should be a minimum of 1 minute, but obviously with the minimum combined duration of 3 minutes. So one would have to be, if you did have one that is 1 minute long, the other would have to be at least 2 minutes. Continuing from the point made about the stage and screen, it's to match the opening of a film that actually exists. So yeah, as my previous reply, it doesn't have to be an existing film. It could be something that the learner has created, but it could be for an existing film that's there. Our pupils was able to compose a song for the opening credits. Who's allowed to be inspired by a TV show opening credits, or must it be a film? I believe I haven't got the exact wording of the brief in front of me at the moment, but I believe it does say film. So can a four-hands piano performance be considered an ensemble performance? So if there are it's a duet and there are two parts and there is interaction between the parts, and it does meet that requirement of at least two live musicians performing undoubled, simultaneously sounding independent parts for at least 1 minute, then that would be considered an ensemble performance. What is the maximum length for composition and performance? There is a recommended maximum in the specification, and I am trying to remember exactly what they are because I haven't looked at that for a while. I believe performance says a recommended maximum of 6 minutes. Obviously, with that situation, if a piece or a performance is longer, it would be marked and everything would be looked at. However, particularly compositions, if they are very long, they can end up being self-penalizing because they may not develop sufficiently over that duration of the piece, and that happens in particularly long compositions. They do rely on repetition of material. And then performances, it can be in a situation where if it's a long performance, a long piece, candidates can grow tired, more errors can creep in, so that would have to be taken into account when they are marking that as well. So so it's making sure that you're selecting pieces and that candidates are going to perform their best at, I would say there. Can I ask why it seems to be pictures that compositions last year have been moderated down nationally? I can't really answer that. I'm not involved with the moderation process in those terms. I haven't seen the statistics yet in terms of how that compares with previous years. I don't think there was anything particularly more this 25 than previous years as a general picture. But yeah, I can't really say anything on that because I don't have all of that answer and the detail of all the statistics, and I wasn't involved with the moderation process. Okay. If there aren't any more questions coming in, I'll move on to this slide where this has my contact details on. So there's the contact form on the website where you can always submit any queries that you have. You can do that via email to teachingmusic@pearson.com. There's the phone number that you can call, and it doesn't go through directly to me, but if you do need to speak to me, you can ask to do that. Or there is the one-to-one bookings, so that allows you to book a online video call with me via Teams, and that link there for that has my availability on a rolling 30-day period. So hopefully you can find a slot if you need to do that, and to ask any questions in that way as well. And I suppose the other thing to mention is you may have seen some communication about this. We are going through a rebrand with Pearson at the moment. So you will see some difference in logo and design of things. That's an ongoing process that will be happening over the next few months, year, and that will happen slowly. It's not going to really affect anything in terms of how you deliver anything. It's just to make you aware of the different look that will happen on material as it comes out. And the other thing to mention is there will be a Pearson-owned Facebook group that is starting up. It has literally just happened today. It will be run by me as the admin on there. It's going to be intended to be like a supportive place where you can ask things and share ideas as well. So please do sign up to that, and I will be giving out more information about that over the next month or so as well. So thank you very much for attending. I hope you found it useful. Yes, I will share the slides and send those out so you can have a copy of those. So I hope you found everything useful, and have a good evening. Yes, I'll share the name of the Facebook group as well. That will have to be later on. I don't have all the access to that at the moment with links and everything, but I'll try and include that with sending the slides as well.